I remember staring at my hands. Not because there was anything special about them, but because I didn't know where else to look. The room was quiet, too quiet. Not peaceful, just heavy. The kind of silence that makes every small sound feel important. I sat on the edge of the bed and pressed my fingers together, trying to stop them from shaking, but they kept moving anyway. Small movements, barely noticeable. Like my body understood something, my mind hadn't caught up to yet. The lamp beside the bed gave off a soft yellow light, dim enough to make the room feel smaller, and somehow that made everything worse. Because nothing was hidden, and still, nothing made sense. I tried to focus on my breathing, slow, even. If I focused on that, maybe I wouldn't think too much, because thinking made everything feel heavier. I didn't understand it then, but that was the first moment I realized being prepared and actually understanding something are completely different things. All my life, people told me marriage was important, sacred, expected, normal. But nobody explained this part. Nobody explained how it would feel sitting in that room, feeling completely unsure of yourself. Nobody explained why my chest felt tight, why my stomach felt heavy, why every second felt longer than normal. Everything around me looked ordinary, the same wooden walls, the same curtains moving slightly from the night air, the same floorboards beneath my feet. Nothing had changed, and yet, everything felt different. That's when something started to feel off, not in a dramatic way, just quietly, like a thought trying to form somewhere deep inside me. He sat beside me carefully, slowly, not confident either, and somehow, that made me even more uncomfortable, because I realized something immediately. He didn't fully understand this moment either. We were both pretending we knew what we were supposed to do, pretending we understood something no one had ever explained clearly. And the strangest part was, everyone around us acted like this was normal. At the time, I told myself this was normal, that confusion was probably part of marriage, that maybe everyone feels this way in the beginning. But even while thinking that, something inside me resisted. Because confusion and silence are not the same thing, and this felt like silence, heavy silence, the kind that teaches you something without words, the kind that tells you, don't ask questions. I didn't understand it then, but silence was already shaping the entire experience. We barely spoke, just small words, simple things, the kind of words people use when they don't know what else to say. But once the talking stopped, the silence returned immediately, stronger than before. I became aware of everything, the sound of fabric moving, the bed shifting slightly, the wind touching the window, even my breathing sounded too loud. That's when I realized I was trying to disappear inside the room, trying not to take up space, trying not to do something wrong, because I didn't know what the right thing was. And when people don't understand something, they become careful, quiet, small. That's exactly what I became. Looking back now, I think that was the first night I truly felt emotionally trapped, not because anyone forced me physically, but because I had no emotional understanding of what was happening. There's a difference, a huge difference, and nobody explained that part. Life continued after that night. That was the strange thing. The next morning, everything looked normal again. Breakfast was made, people smiled, conversations continued. No one acted like anything important had happened, and that confused me even more. Because inside me, something still felt unsettled, but outside, everything carried on exactly the same. I didn't understand it then, but that was the beginning of the split between appearance and reality, the difference between what people show and what they actually feel. Days passed, then weeks, but that feeling never fully disappeared. It stayed quiet, but constant, like a question sitting somewhere in the back of my mind. And once a question stays long enough, it starts changing the way you see everything. I started noticing things I hadn't noticed before, the way older women avoided certain conversations, the way people stopped talking when subjects became too personal, the way silence filled spaces where honesty should have existed. That's when something started to feel off again, not just about marriage, about the entire system around it, because I realized something slowly. People weren't quiet because they understood. They were quiet because they learned not to ask. That realization changed everything for me. One afternoon, I was helping another girl fold laundry outside. Her name was Sarah. We were talking about normal things, work, weather, daily routines, and then suddenly, without even looking at me, She said something quietly. I cried after my first night. That was it. No details, no explanation. But those words stayed with me, because in that moment, I realized I wasn't alone. And somehow, that realization made everything heavier, because now it wasn't just confusion anymore. It was pattern. Something shared, something repeated, something carried silently by many people. We didn't continue the conversation after that. We didn't need to, because we both understood exactly what the other meant. And that realization followed me home that evening. I remember laying awake, staring into the darkness, thinking about how many women probably felt the same thing. How many sat quietly pretending they understood. How many convinced themselves discomfort was normal. Night after night, those thoughts stayed with me, and every morning, everything looked normal again. That was the hardest part, the normalness of it all, because when pain becomes ordinary, people stop questioning it. At the time, I told myself this was normal, but slowly, I stopped believing that, because normal things usually make sense eventually. This never did, and that realization scared me, not because I suddenly understood everything, but because I realized how much had never been explained honestly. I didn't understand it then, but silence can shape your life before you even notice it. It teaches you what feelings to ignore, what questions not to ask, what discomfort to accept quietly. And once you grow up inside that silence, it becomes difficult to tell the difference between peace and suppression. That understanding came slowly. Years slowly changed the way I saw everything. I learned words I didn't have before. Pressure, expectation, emotional isolation, things I had felt deeply but never knew how to describe. And once you can name something, you finally begin to see it clearly. Looking back now, I don't think the hardest part was the night itself. I think the hardest part was believing my confusion meant something was wrong with me, when really, I had simply never been emotionally prepared. There's a difference, and nobody explained that difference. I still think about that night sometimes, not because of what happened, but because of how alone I felt while pretending everything was normal. Because of how badly I wanted someone to simply explain things honestly. Some things stay with you, not as sharp memories, but as feelings your body remembers before your mind fully understands them. And maybe that's the part nobody talks about, not the event itself, but the silence surrounding it. The expectation that you should understand things without anyone teaching you emotionally. If you grew up in a place where silence was treated like maturity, where questions felt dangerous, where confusion had to stay hidden, I understand you, because I know what it feels like to realize something important too late. And maybe, speaking honestly about it now, is the first real understanding I was ever given.